20 people are attacked by an intimate partner every minute in the United States. For thousands every year, that minute is their last. The statistics are a reality, but for Chelsea Smith, they are her hell.
I've been on the ground fighting for my life.
Her physical wounds have healed, but the emotional assault never falters. Memories of repeated violent attacks torment her every day.
I would say my worst day was my first holiday to celebrate with my child. I had to have a friend of mine put makeup on the backs of my legs to cover up the whelps and the bruising that I encountered that morning.
Chelsea shares a young child with her ex-boyfriend, a man who she long feared would take her life. Years ago, she started to fight back. Little did she know, more than 6 years later, that fight would not be over.
The turning point, I think, was to see that my children were so scared, begging, not to answer the door, don't answer your phone. When it never stops and it never goes away, you know that you have to do something.
Chelsea says she's had several protective orders over the years. To this day, she questions if they're worth the paper on which they're written.
I have never really seen them ever work. At first, I was thinking, hey, I'm going to be protected. This is going to do something. This is going to help me.
She says her abuser violated the protective order multiple times, violations that often ended with bruises. By the time officers arrived, he was gone. Sometimes he walked free. When he was arrested, his time behind bars was a brief reprieve from the abuse.
He could be bailed out with a $50 bond, and he's walking free within a couple of hours.
Parenting time arrangements prevented her child from being on her protective orders. She would arrange exchanges in public places, but she says it was just another venue for continued beatings.
Scratching, punching, strangling, all those things were taking place right in front of the child that we were exchanging.
Chelsea's story mirrors that of countless other victims, many of whom reach out to the Albion Fellows Bacon Center for help. As a legal advocate, Gina Gist helps victims like Chelsea navigate through the civil and criminal justice system. She helps victims understand what the orders can and cannot do.
Protective order is just a piece of paper. It's not a 6-foot bodyguard who's going to be with that person all the time.
Protective orders ban an abuser from a victim's home and workplace. As long as there's no contact, going to public places like churches, parks, even standing in the street in front of a victim's house is typically not a violation.
You get some individuals who are afraid of the legal system, who are afraid of being arrested or going to jail, so a protective order may work for that individual. I've had other clients who've had abusers who've dealt with the legal system for years, that this isn't the first person they've abused and it's not the first protective order they've had against them. So for them, it is just a piece of paper, and they're still going to try to have access to that victim.
A piece of paper it may be, but people are filing petitions for protective orders in record numbers. Many cases spill over into electronic communications, a newfound venue for harassment. The internet, text messaging, and social media all pose a threat of their own.
Right now with technology the way it is, it's kind of hard for the legal system to keep up with that at times.
I think that's one thing that's really driven the increase in the number of protective orders.
By the end of this year, Vandenberg Superior Court Judge Les Shively estimates around 2,500 protective orders will have been issued in the county, a number that's grown over the years.
Protective orders are part of our daily routine.
When a judge signs off on an order, it's entered into a nationwide system that day, making it immediately accessible to law enforcement. Those who do violate the order are often arrested and charged with invasion of privacy, which can be a low-level felony.
A lot of people say, well, a piece of paper isn't going to do me any good. Well, you'd be surprised. What clogs up the system are the she says something bad about me on Facebook type of complaints. And it's really important on our part to filter those at the inception so that the system is in full gear for the legitimate domestic violence and legitimate stalking claims.
Shively says Vandenberg County is handling the apparent increase in demand well, at least for now. Other smaller counties aren't as fortunate. It's affecting the delivery to victims and law enforcement.
It's difficult because they don't have as many judges. And we've had clients before when they're filing the protective order where they actually have to leave the petition and they don't find out for maybe a day or 2 days before the the order's actually granted to where law enforcement can help them if something actually happens.
Permanent protective orders expire after 2 years. At that time, the victims have to go to court with a new set of circumstances to prove the abuse is still happening. Chelsea let hers expire. She says the harassment continued once again. But without a protective order, law enforcement didn't have the grounds to make an arrest. She says she learned a hard lesson. It's better to have a protective order than go without. Well, the process isn't flawless. She says it's made her stronger. That piece of paper will never be the bodyguard stopping all abuse. But for her, it was the beginning of a new chapter, the beginning of a new life.
You know, you don't realize how miserable your life was until you actually get to a better place in your life. You can actually look back at it and say, I can't believe I lived my life through this. You don't want to live your life to the point where, you know, you're always so scared. And being scared your entire life, you're missing out on a lot.
Now, the encounter that you're about to go to court over, was that after the protective order was in place?
Well, I've had several that have expired over time, and, you know, things got